to return this for the legacy. You know the road can feel cold, but this my destiny. No more pretending or tripping over excuses. Temper flare.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Resilient Man Project, where we show you the roadmap to resilience through life's experiences and our daily habits. Well, the day's finally here. It's been an anxious time for me. So I want the whole vibe of the show just to be honest and raw. So that's how I'm gonna start it. Leading into this thing, if I'm being honest, I've kind of, I don't know, felt like a fraud. Even though it's my story and I know it's me and it's my life. For some reason, when I would go to tell somebody about it, I just get this feeling inside, and I'm quite able to put my finger on it. And a dear friend of mine over the weekend kind of made me come to a realization that I'm still carrying around a lot of shame. And so it's going to be cool to work through all that stuff with you guys and take you along the ride. I want this show to be as honest and as raw and as real as anything out there. My definition of resilience is it's the reservoir of strength that we all have inside of us that we pull from in times of adversity. That reservoir is developed over time. It's not a trait. It's not God-given. I think some of us have more than others maybe to begin with, but it's developed. It's strengthened through trials and tribulations in life. So, who's the podcast for? It's for past versions of myself and for anyone else really that's gone through just about anything. So, maybe you just got out of prison, or maybe you're an addict, or maybe you're high right now. Maybe you didn't have the best upbringing. Maybe you have a failed marriage or a failed business. Maybe you're going through any sort of thing that we all go through, This podcast is for you. This podcast is for you. This podcast is to give you a map, to give you clues through my experiences and experiences of people that I know, the lessons that we learn through those experiences. So hopefully that you can develop the skill. So the fact is in today's world, there needs to be more resilience. And if I'm being honest, every day it gets a little worse and a little worse. And I have fear that we're going to need way more resilience than we have right now in the time ahead of us. So I fast-tracked this thing really a couple of months before I was ready, just because of where the world is and how important I think that this message is. It's going to get ugly. Going to make you squirm probably sometimes. But I think that's what it's going to take. So that's kind of what the Resilient Man Project is going to be. Is my vision for the podcast. I guess we get into the story, to my story, to why I think that I'm qualified to talk to you about resilience. And the reason that I feel that I'm qualified to talk to you about resilience is because of my story. So, to begin my story, I think we got to start with the story that I was kind of born into. My mom grew up around the south side of Atlanta, and around 14 or 15, somewhere in there. Or actually, I was thinking it was around like 12 or something like that. They moved away from Atlanta to a farm. But my mom was a wild child, and according to my aunt, at like 16, she moved out of the house and back to Atlanta on her own. Fast forward a little bit, and she winds up pregnant with me at 16. I think she had me at 17. Dad was 18. my mom didn't have very much support. She didn't have the best that I've been able to gather. After she had me, she didn't really have the support and the foundation that she needed, and I think that my dad's mom wanted what's best for me, but probably did things in the wrong way, and kind of, I guess, took me from my mom in a way. So I bounced around a little bit. I lived with my grandmother till I was like 2 or 3, and then over to mom's until around 5 and a half, and then ended up with dad. But those years with mom, my earliest memory is where I kind of want to start. And I had a conversation with my aunt about a week ago, and she helped to basically talk through everything with her, and based on some of the things I told her, we were able to piece together and just kind of make sure that it's pretty accurate. But I'm around 3 years old. We're in an apartment. I know it's on like the 2nd floor. I remember that. And I remember my mom used to walk to work from there. I'm pretty sure it was at Steak and Ale. She was a bartender or something like that. There's a mattress on the floor. I don't remember any other furniture. I don't know if there was or not. I only remember the mattress. There was a sheet and a comforter, and that was it. I remember my mom laying in that bed all day sick. I remember me taking a can of potato soup to her and getting her to help me open it, and me heating it up and sitting on that bed with her and eating it. I'm not sure if that was the only can of soup in the house or what. It feels like it was, but my earliest memory is us sitting there in a crappy apartment eating a can of potato soup. So do with that what you will. I just think it's important to kind of share my earliest memory. 1985, I'm around 5 years old. My sister's born, my younger sister, and I end up getting moved over to dad's. I live with my dad in the south side of Atlanta, and one of kind of the rougher areas. There was definitely drug use and gangs and all that stuff everywhere for sure. My sister's biological father was arrested for armed robbery within a month of her being born. So, and I'm not sure if that was the catalyst that got me to move in with dad or not. I haven't quite pieced that stuff together. As I find out this stuff, that I'll let you guys know. And like I said, this is going to be kind of the cool thing about this is I'm really just getting into digging deep in my own story and taking you guys along for the ride as I have revelations or as I figure things out or find things out. I think will be kind of a cool thing. So, armed robbery. So here my mom is. She has a 5-year-old boy, already divorced, second child. She's 21, 22. And then he goes away for armed robbery. In those next few years, man, I have some really crazy memories of being at mom's on weekends. One that really stands out is that I was probably like 7 years old or 8. I know this because my sister was 2 or 3, and we're in an apartment, and my mom is dressed like a stripper and goes out for the night and leaves me, another little boy that's a little bit younger than me, and my sister there. So at age 7, I am responsible for 2 other human beings, and somewhere or another, this kid sprays my 3-year-old sister with pepper spray. And I remember being like 7 years old, having her in the bath crying, and her crying, and me just trying to like figure out what to do. And now, like thinking back through those memories, it's like never had a childhood type of emotions come up. Was pretty much responsible for things that I had no business being responsible for way too early. So those are kind of the 2 early memories, and that's the only 2 kind of early memories I want to share, because as we go through this journey and the story, and as other people come on, I want to be able to share, new stories and new insights along the way. But those are kind of the two that stand out, just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what my early childhood was like. From there, I'm living with Dad, so that memory is on a weekend. I'm living with Dad in Jonesboro, Georgia, South Atlanta. Like I said, pretty rough. It was rough back then. It's really rough now. I mean, even before we left there was prostitutes standing on the corner and things like that, and crack houses, drug house. I mean, those were normal, no big deal. Friends' houses, you turn the light on and roaches scatter. Mattress on the floor and a fan, a box fan was kind of like the standard decor. But it's just life. Now, my house was not like that. Both of my parents worked. They provided that, we ate dinner every night. I played like a baseball for a year or two. Like, I had some aspects of a normal childhood. There were some things, that weren't so great as well. My dad was kind of raised by someone that didn't really. My grandmother, she was a hard woman, and she kind of raised a hard man. I don't think he really knew how to share emotion. So those types of things I never really got much of. There was, and you got to think too now. They're in their early 20s. They're kids. They have no idea what they're doing, and this is by no means any sort of resentment towards them, because as you'll hear in my story, after I have my first kids, I was 100 times worse. But I was constantly around partying on the weekends, drinking on a nightly basis. I was just in all sorts of environments that a kid had no business being in, seeing all sorts of things that a kid had no business seeing. Again, nobody's fault. No blame here. Just, I shared my testimony already once, and it kind of caused some crap, like I'm like blaming people, and it's not. Like, this is my story. This is what happened. As you'll see, these things that I experienced in my early childhood played a huge role in the man that I became in my 20s. So we're living in Jonesboro, like I said. They had, just around all kinds of stuff that I shouldn't be around, whether sometimes in my home, but most of the time outside of my home. My best friend had an older brother who we kind of tagged along, 5 or so years older than us, so we were exposed to things way too early. And I talked with my best friend just to kind of make sure, because, man, I just want to make sure this is all as accurate as I possibly can make it. But we kind of figured that we dipped for the first time around 8 years old. We smoked cigarettes for the first time around 9 or 10, and we smoked weed for the first time in 8th grade, so at like 12. So that just, like I said, just kind of setting up the, drinking a 40 and smoking a cigarette at the age of 10 was like normal. So if that just kind of gives you an idea of, it kind of lines up really well, honestly, with me not having a childhood, right? I'm already showing, signs that most people don't show until they get into their teens, at least, into high school. But so not like we're drinking, and partying all the time, but like when we can get it, we are drinking 40s. And I remember getting caught with hard liquor by my best friend's mom in 7th grade. So those were the types of kids that we were. We were involved in, I'm not going to say that we were by any means like gangsters, or my brothers, even his older brother and his type friends were like by any means like real gangsters, but there absolutely were real gangsters all around us. They hung out at my best friend's house. They drove the cool cars. They had all the money and the drugs and the girls, and that is who we idolized. That's who we wanted to be. So Parents move. They work their way up. They get us out of Jonesboro to the suburbs, out about, I don't know, 30 or so miles outside of the city. And I have a fairly normal high school, from ninth grade to 12th, probably just like most of you guys listening. Freaking partied my ass off. I'm talking drank and drank every weekend. We would sit and smoke an ounce of weed in one night, like just party. I dated the cheerleader, and I was kind of in the center of everything, and for really the only time in my life I was kind of like socially, comfortable, and I just had, like I said, a pretty awesome high school experience. The rave scene hit really big, and when I was a junior or so, like 97, 98. So ecstasy, acid I sold acid, and we did ecstasy like crazy every weekend for like that year, going to underground raves and warehouses in Atlanta, and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Thankful looking back, there was never any overdose, because we were messing with some pretty serious stuff and doing, really way too much of it. So let's see here. Moved there. We had like I said, had a pretty awesome high school experience. Did manage to graduate by the grace of God. I'm pretty sure my English teacher had to give me 2 points my senior year to graduate. Just never cared about school ever. Was always bored, and honestly always looked at it as, from a very early age, looked at it like, this is nothing that I will ever need in life. That's just kind of the attitude that I have. I had very good intuition. I'm not very smart. I don't have like really good like memory retention or things like that, but I have the ability to solve problems. I'm cool under pressure, and have a very unique set of life's experiences, which kind of makes me just as comfortable in a crack house as a boardroom. It's kind of wild to say, but I could literally walk in a trap house right now and sit down on the couch and watch TV and like feel comfortable, and I could walk into a boardroom of an executive and give a presentation on a flooring project, because that's what I know. So let's see here. Kind of got a little sidetracked. Graduate high school, and right around the time I graduate high school, my neighbor is going through a divorce, and I wind up getting an apartment with her, and in Noonan. So I'm out of my house within like 2 weeks of turning 18. It tells you, just I'm out, I'm gone, I'm ready to again, kind of runs right parallel with that, being mature, being ready to move on to that next phase of life, really, really quick. And we got an apartment, got engaged for all the wrong reasons. Started a marriage, honestly, with a foundation just wasn't built on the things that it should be built on. Had my first daughter at had my first daughter at 20. Foreclosed on our first home with I guess probably like a 1-year-old and a wife that was about to have a baby. So that tells you the kind of person that I was. So I'm working at Applebee's at this point. I've worked my way into a management position. I've always excelled in my professional career ever since I started working, basically. At Applebee's, I was given keys to the store like at a very young age. I was put into management literally the week that I was eligible enough by my age. once I was in management, excelled through positions to the point to where I was the youngest kitchen manager in the state. I was in charge of training the other managers that were hired in the kitchen, and I was at the busiest store in, like, I think maybe the whole company at the time. We end up getting foreclosed on and have to move in with my parents for a while, which was kind of rough because, you know, we had a newborn and then she was pregnant, and, you know, at night there'd just be drinking and partying, and it was really loud, and it was not an environment that was great for us. So we got an apartment right down the street, and there we have my son. I'm working at Applebee's, and one day I am snorting a line in the bathroom, and I'll leave my ID and a rolled up dollar bill on the toilet paper dispenser. So there's no escaping that one when it's your ID. So I'm fired. I make up some reason. I'm not sure why, but either she didn't let on that she knew or whatever, but I lied to my ex-wife and get a job working with my dad painting at this time. I had already pretty much spent my whole youth and working side jobs, and I already had like a foundation for painting. I'd been around it, and that's what my dad always did, and so it just kind of made sense. But yeah, got fired with all of that promise and potential for snorting meth in the bathroom after just getting foreclosed on. Yeah. So again, I just want to point to who I was back then. I want to point to this person for a reason. So let's pick it up there. I'm at that point. I'm working for the company my dad works for. I start doing side work and again excelling, and I'm supervising jobs for the company I work for, and I'm doing tons of side work. Managed to get the side work up enough to start my own first business. And this is where I really kind of start to mix in pain pills with the meth, is right around this time. So, yeah, I'm a freaking just, for that 10 years of my 20s, I just want to give you a glimpse of the type of person that I was. The addiction came out in me in ways that I can't even explain. It's like there's just this monster inside of you, and I mean, he's still there. I've just figured out how to tame him. All right, so around 30, my ex-wife finally has enough of my shit when she finds out that our second home is about to be foreclosed on for a myriad of same type of bullshit. And when I leave the house at 31, when we separate, I go absolutely pretty much like mental, I would say. I bounce around from hotel to hotel, living on the street. I end up hooking up with a pretty big drug dealer in the area and becoming like his right-hand man. So I basically am the guy in the hotel room weighing up stuff while he goes and does whatever, collecting money. That turns into all sorts of kind of odd jobs kind of for this guy and his crew. Good business sense. So I kind of stuck out even in that environment. I would say I definitely was kind of an outlier, just the way that I carried myself, and I was an addict and all those things, but you could just tell I had some sense. I think that turned into literally like debt collecting. It turned into robbing other drug dealers, basically. It turned into all kinds of crazy. And when I tell you that I'm thankful to be alive today, like, that's not just like something that I'm saying. I want to give one story from that time. I just want a glimpse. I want to give you guys a glimpse into who I was. Like I said, it had turned into some debt collecting and things like that. And so the guy comes to me and he says, hey, I need you to go with I think it was like his cousin or something. She was related to him, and her boyfriend, because there was an easy target and they had, this and this and this, and we wanted it. So we're at a hotel at 285 in Old Riverdale Road. Old National, right there at 285 and Old National. And we get in the van, and it's like 2:00 in the morning. And they drive us. They drive us, when I tell you, back to the very, very back in the worst neighborhood in Atlanta, and like Cleveland, right off of Cleveland Avenue. And I'm talking about like not just in it, but like through other neighborhoods, like way back away from anything. And we get out, and me and this other young kid, and I don't even really remember why he was there. I just remember he didn't belong. Like, you could just tell he was in way over his head, and he was young. He was like 18 or 19. And yeah, just he had no business being there. But we get out, and me and him get out first, and they get out behind us, and the house is right down there. So we get out, and we're kind of heading that direction, and all of a sudden I just hear, "You just got, mother." And I turn around, and there's a pistol in my face. And they proceed to slowly back away, get in the van, and leave us at 2:00 in the morning in the middle of the worst neighborhood in Atlanta. And anybody knows south side of Atlanta, like, there's some places you don't want to be. Now, the other little thing about this is, when you're in that line of work and you're doing something like that, you don't have your ID with you. You don't have your phone with you. You don't take anything with you, because you don't want to be ID'd in case something goes wrong. You don't want to drop something. So you literally walk into that situation with nothing. So we're probably 10 to 15 miles to our hotel at 2:00 in the morning in the middle of Atlanta with no money, no phone, no way to get back, while these guys take the van to go back to rob our hotel rooms, basically, to clean them out. I don't think they realized, like, the street smarts that I had, though. Like, I was honestly, like, I was good. I was comfortable. We made our way to a store. I ended up finessing the guy, telling him that there's drugs and money back at our hotel room, if you just get us back there. And I got him, and just, did what I do. And man, we made it back in probably like 4 hours, and I think we surprised them because they were still there, and it was this whole big ordeal. But just a glimpse, and man, I have so many stories like that, but that's the one that really kind of sticks out. But at this point, pills, meth, nonstop. And towards the end of this run is when I get introduced to a needle for the first time, which took things just to a place that there was no coming back from, and it took it there really freaking fast. So running around with this like 20-year-old stripper chick, and she says, hey, there's this guy that proposed to me, and He has this huge ring and he's not there and blah, blah, blah. So we go break into this house. Long story short, it's his parents' house and they come home. When they come home, we bolt, but I'm arrested I'm arrested like the next day for that crime. At this point, I think I'd been up for about a week. When I tell you, like, out of my mind, like, I mean, like, literally out of my mind. So we get arrested, and I spend the next 32 months in prison. So let's talk about prison a little for a few minutes. First off, best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life, probably, other than finding my faith. It sat me down and gave me no choice but to come to grips and terms with who I was, what I had done. And it gave me a chance to look around that room and just decide, you know, I won't be back here. I would say I became a man of, literally, I slept for 2 weeks when I got in. And when I kind of woke up for the first time out of my haze, I almost instantly became known kind of as a man of integrity, even in jail and then through prison. The guy holding the money on a poker game or whatever. I just became known for, you know, if I said something, people knew, you know, that it was going to happen or that it was the truth. And I've tried my best to carry that to this day, since that day. And it served me well. I mean, of course, I'm not perfect, but I do my very, very best to live in brutally honest, no holding back integrity. So in prison, I'm next to a guy who has a strong faith. And he kind of, we just start talking and strike up a friendship. And before I know it, like, I mean, I'm reading the Bible, and I never forget this one time I was walking and the sun kind of came through the window just right, and I had my headphones in, my little gel headphones in, and the Hurt and the Healer, this Christian song came on, and God kind of smiled at me, I think, through that window, like the light came through, and I just got this feeling inside, and I started building really a good foundation with God, and I don't really want this show to necessarily be about faith and religion. I want my story to point people to the things that got me to where I am, and that's by far the biggest thing. So let's see. I go from there. I go to prison. I really dig deep. I read a ton. I become like the greatest spades player in the history of mankind. I don't know. I just really quieted myself. I read the Bible. I read books. I read. I thought about my future. I visualized my future. I visualized what I wanted out of this life. I visualized myself in a house, in a yard, and a dog, and you know, that's what I did. And when I tell you the law of attraction is a real thing, I promise you it is. What you put out into this world, you get back. If you can literally manifest things with your mind if you just will trust in it. And again, we'll get to all that stuff. One story from prison, and then we'll move on. I'm in diagnostics, which this was the worst place that I was. It's where everybody goes when they're first transported from jail to prison. When you make that transition, you go and you get, you know, your shots and all your way and your psychological profile and all these things. But that place, everybody's together. It doesn't matter your crime. Like it is sectioned off like the worst of the worst. But so I'm there. I'm a couple of days in. Been hanging out with this guy. We're sitting down. We're playing spades. Got him on right. I got him on left. And through conversation, I find out that the guy to my left was in there for murdering his own 2 kids. And the guy to my right was in there for rape. And I had literally been sitting around laughing and joking and hanging out with these guys for 2 days. And later that night, I watched one of them beat the crap out of another guy for like literally no reason. Like for like looking at him earlier in that day, but the guy was kind of a weaker guy and he made an example out of him. And man, that was a freaking impactful moment. I remember sitting there and sitting back and just looking at these people around me and thinking like, what the fuck am I doing here? You know? And I decided right then I'd never be back. Learned a lot about myself. Learned a lot about, I've always been fascinated with psychology. Learned a lot about people and just watching people in prison. And you develop an amazing sense of bullshit detector because you're constantly getting game ran on you. You know, I learned some things that have served me well, for sure, being in there. All right, so I get moved to a transitional center. I found a job making, I think it was $8 an hour. Maybe it was $9. I think it was $8 though, for a local company that had a division that dealt with coatings, which is what I know. I got that job and worked my way up pretty quick. As soon as I got out of the transitional center, I was moved to like a supervisor position, and then when I was released from the transitional center, I got moved into a sales position, where I absolutely flourished. Broke every sales record in the company, just set a new bar in sales for that company, and went from, I was trying to decide the order I wanted to kind of put this because some things happened right in the middle of this. But basically in between 2015 and 2020, in 2015 I made $8 or $9 an hour, whatever it was. In 2020, my W-2 was like $230,000. So that tells you, you know, in 5 years straight out of prison, convicted felon, all those things. It tells you, you know, the type of how good I was, I guess, at my job. But even through that, so when I'm first released from prison, about 3 weeks or so after I'm released, I get a call from my sister. I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. When I'm first released from prison, like within the first week, I go and visit my mom. She is swollen, like looks really, really weird, like really like lethargic looking. My sister and her boyfriend, which he is a major part of the toxic crap that was just injected into that whole time was him, man. When he was in jail, my sister was, man, working and doing great. As soon as he'd come out, she'd start right back down the wrong path. But I'm going to visit her. I'm there for like an hour. She like sits on the couch, like just hardly moves. Her face is all like puffed up and swollen, and she can like barely move her lips. Like it's really kind of strange. and I leave, and then about a week or so later, I get a call from my sister that my mom had OD'd. So I've been out less than a month, and I sit in ICU, and I had lost so much time with my mom already. I really feel like I willed her to live, because 3 days in, her mouth's still hanging open with her tongue hanging out, and her eyes are still rolled in the back of her head. 2 or 3 days in, people are not people, but there are just things made, little things I hear and stuff. It doesn't look good. And I even kind of have this situation brought to me about maybe having to, if I have to make those types of decisions, and I wasn't hearing it. And I just went in there and held my mom's hand and prayed and prayed and prayed. And my mom pulled through. She's, I wasn't the best person, but I think resilience is probably something that you could definitely say was one of her traits as well. She bounced back from all kinds of things. Problem is, she just never learned any lessons from it. So she pulls through. She goes to rehab because it was an OD. A week later, her husband dies. So she gets pulled out of rehab a week early. Spinning out of control. I get her out of that house. I get her own apartment away from my sister and her boyfriend. And I get her doing decent, back to kind of going to the store and having conversations, and she's doing pretty good. She's slowly making her way back to the mom that I had not seen in a very, very long time. And we're sitting on her back porch, and she gets a call. And it's my sister. And she says, "Mom, me and Sean have nowhere to go. Can we come stay with you for 2 weeks?" I'm sitting on the back porch. My mom literally just got out of ICU, just got out of rehab, and just lost her husband. She was in no shape to deal with that emotionally. She could barely take care of herself. I get her to stand strong and tell my sister, y'all are going to have to figure it out for yourself this time, and I feel really good about it. I feel really good about helping my mom, standing behind her and giving her the strength to make the decision which I felt was the right decision. So about a month or so goes by, and I get a call from my aunt at 7 o'clock in the morning. And my sister has overdosed and died in some shitty motel room in Atlanta by herself. So the gravity of that hits me, the weight of that hits me, all those feelings of, should I just let her come home that day, come to mom's that day, if I just would have let her come back. And then I find myself driving 20 minutes to my mom's apartment to tell this fragile, fragile woman that her daughter's dead. By far the worst drive of my life. I get there and I wake my mom up, and I swear it's almost like when she opened her eyes and saw the look on my face, she just started going, "Oh no, oh no. Oh no, is it Christina?" She completely loses it. It's horrible. She blames herself. I feel like she blames me. She doesn't ever say it, but somehow we get through the funeral, and I spent the next few months checking on my mom every day on my lunch break. I would go and I would sit outside of her apartment sometimes, and I would listen to her like belligerently drunk because she would find a way to get alcohol, have these conversations with imaginary people and literally, I think, demons and the devil. And at this point, my mom's mind, from all the trauma and the years of abuse, drug use, she was pretty much insane at this point. To the point to where one day, like, it was so bad I didn't know what to do, and I called my wife, Mandy, and I said, I'm gonna bring her home. I don't know what else to do. I brought her back, and she would stay a day or two, and then when I go to work, she'd leave, and I don't know. But she ended up getting a different apartment, and it's around this time that I get married to the absolute love of my life, my rock. And my mom doesn't even come to my wedding. She says she's coming, never shows up. And then one day when I'm going to check on her around lunchtime, I haven't heard from her in a day or so, and I get there and knock on the door and no answer. And man, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, and I take 2 steps towards my truck, and I just say, I wonder if the door is unlocked for whatever reason. And I turn around and I check the door, and it was unlocked. And I open the door, and my mom's apartment is completely trashed. TV slipped over and broken, pictures off the wall. Literally like bowel movement on the floor, like her apartment is trashed. Fans knocked over, clicking, that click, 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 click. Never forget that freaking click. And I walked through the apartment, and my mom is suicide by overdose. There are bottles of pills on the floor, and you can tell she like pressed her back up against the wall and then just slid down it. Her neck was like at a 90-degree angle. So, in that moment, there's pain pills on the floor, and I call 911 and get them on the way, and I go back in there and I sit beside my mom and cry. And grab a handful of them pills and throw them in my mouth. And go outside and wait on the cops. I spend the next couple months headed down the wrong path. I go to the doctor, get my own prescription, and I'm well on my way. By the grace of God, something inside of me said, not this time, you know. So I called my wife and I said, babe, we got to talk. And I sat on the couch and told her everything that I was going through. And she just loved me and supported me and understood and helped me get through it. You know, a lot of people are probably hearing my story, and they have a sense of pain, or I'm not going to say pity, but natural. You feel hurt, you feel sorry for someone when you hear a story like mine. But over the last few years, I see my story so differently than probably everyone else. I see my mom's life as something beautiful, something that it took to get me here to this day, to do this thing that's going to make a difference. I look at my sister's life, honestly, with a lot of regret. I feel like I was not there for her like I should have been, like a big brother's supposed to be. I knew the environment that she was in better than probably anyone else, and yet I just kind of did my own thing. I have a lot of regret around that. I would say Christina is one of the main driving forces behind this movement. We're going to end the first one there, guys. Won't be so sad on the next one, I promise. So, see you guys next week.
I do it for my legacy. I do it for the ones that are close to me.